On this, and there we have it. So, welcome, welcome, welcome to this amazing day. This has been, weather-wise, this week has been crazy, and we see that there have been things that are blowing through. And when I think about this idea of things blowing through, I'm thinking about it in this sense of the flow and being with the flow. And when you think about, I think about everything being in motion. So when I think about flow, I'm thinking about, what's flowing into my life, whether it's insights, whether it's people, situations, circumstances. There are all things that kind of flow in and through this consciousness that we have. And so when I'm thinking about flow, what is it that is trying to flow to me? And what can I possibly be blocking? And if you think to yourself about some of the, friction that might come up, some of the places where you might need to like call forth some activity, whatever that might mean. Sometimes we feel it in our bodies, in our joints, it seems like things aren't flowing. One of the things that one of the yoga teachers, Vanita, has been talking about is the flow of lymph through our system. And so this thing of how do we unblock or help the things that need to flow through our body for our highest and best good, for our optimal health, how do we help that happen? And when we are blocked, sometimes those blockages are symbolic of the blockages in our body, or symbolic of the blockages in our energy, or in the blockages in our mental house, the places where we are not looking at life from an expanded place, but rather from a constricted place. So when I think about the constrictions that we have, one of the things I recognize is that we have constrictions and resistances built into us because we have learned it from the times we were children. We've learned what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. We've learned a thought system that we hold up as right without realizing that built into those thought systems are the reset button. So if you can imagine, and I just want to use this as an illustration or something. Sometimes when I watch some of the sci-fi shows in particular, in sci-fi shows, they might have this situation where a person is in what appears to be an open setting, but they can't see the boundaries of their own setting. In Star Trek, they used to have this thing called the holodeck, and it looked as if you were in a real environment. You would see, forests sometimes, sometimes you would see a saloon, sometimes you would see different places, and there's the perception. Our minds can be tricked into believing that it doesn't have parameters, right? That it is, you can walk out or walk past or something like that, and you not be stopped by anything. But what happens is, and what we don't see is already that there are boundaries that have been set up that we don't pay attention to. It's like in the Wizard of Oz when they say, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain, right? It is once your vision is blocked, we don't recognize that it might be that we are in a prison that we can't quite see. So if we've been raised to think a particular thing, have a certain perception or ideology, that we don't see the parameters, we don't see the boundaries. And we don't always even know that they're there. Say, for instance, let me give you this for instance. We've been taught about the rest of the world in such a limited perspective. We've been taught that capitalism is good And anything that is not based on that same thing, that same monetary system, socialism, scientific socialism, things that like that, we've been taught that that is bad. As a matter of fact, we've been taught it so it's been indoctrinated in our system so much that we don't even really speak it. It's almost like it's a bad word. We don't investigate what it may look like. As a matter of fact, when we go and we travel, a lot of times we're not even aware of what the economies that we travel in are based on. We have the perception that everywhere we go, that they have the same type of narrative. As a Here's another further point on that. We will have the idea that socialism, we conflate systems with democracy and communism, right? Whereas we think that they are, whatever that is, like that communism automatically means that you've got a harsh ruler, or that the system is pitted against you, like you don't have a say so in anything. What tends to happen is that we find ourselves with this belief that the real place that we make a difference is, good morning, the real place that we make a difference is at the ballot box, and only at the ballot box, where other places may take to the streets. Other places might demonstrate or do something in a totally different way that mirrors their discontent. And then we wonder and we look at them as if somehow they just need to wait 4 years so that they can go to the ballot box and not call for immediate change right now. There are so many different ways that our thought system has been hijacked so that we see things in a particular way, as opposed to being open to the possibility that the ways that we live is not necessarily the only way or the highest and best way even. Sometimes we have to look at and sort of analyze and think about all the things that we may be missing out on. And that was one of the things that I loved about some of the documentaries that Michael Meade put out, was this idea that I'm going to show you that while we may have this arrogance that we think that our system is the best system, let's look at and dissect some other systems, places where they do have universal health care. Somebody else might, think like, oh, that's a socialist principle, but why do we fight up against it so much, right? This rugged individualism, has it served our country? Has it served us as individuals? I'm not really here to investigate how we feel about our government per se and the laws that we live up under. That's not necessarily it. What I am trying to say is that we don't see the boundaries of our own thinking, the conditioning of our own thinking, because we have been this is the system that we have been indoctrinated in. Yes, the ballot box, and we used to one of the things that we saw during the civil rights era was where people actively used to demonstrate, whether it was a bus boycott or a sit-in or whatever type of protest it was, people were actively involved. And now as we look, it's as if and here's the thing, because when Trayvon was killed, not Trayvon, oh gosh, Tamir Rice was killed here in Cleveland. It was interesting because when I was at a protest, they were having a protest. We had a protest downtown. And there were so many people, first off, who didn't even know what was going on. and what we were protesting for. When people in California and in Seattle and in Texas and all places across the country were protesting too. People overseas protesting based on the footage that they saw of this. And there were people right here in our own town that had to ask the question, what's happening? What is going on? And even as we marched, we were herded through the streets as if to say, this is the approved places that we will have you walk, and we don't want you interrupting business as usual. Well, if you're being herded, is that actually a protest, right? And so I know that when I look at the ways in which I see these things happening around the world, whether it is uprisings or protest, whether it is this getting involved in your government, having an opinion, what I know is that that a lot of times people will call us sheeple instead of people, because we are easily distracted, easily, you know, like pay no attention to that man, right? Or a Jedi mind trick pulled on us. Or what is it that they say? That if we can give people something else to focus on, it'll take their attention off of the real problems at hand. So you are being entertained in order to pacify you and to get you to go back to sleep. But we don't see that. We don't see it because our minds have been programmed to believe that this is the way. There is a certain cadence to our day. You get up, you wake up, you maybe have breakfast, you go off to work, and they call it a work ethic. And when you go to work and you get a good day's work, you're doing, you're doing right. And all those other people out there that may be sitting around or not contributing is the way that we call it. We have this whole narrative about them too. We've got a whole narrative about people who do things that are not of the norm, because we are being herded in our life, just like we're herded through the street, just like we're herded through schools. We are being herded. There is a prison that has been set up for our minds, and we don't even know it. Oh, y'all, and I know this is, for some, you might think that why does, are we always poking the bear? Is she talking about things that cause us to expand? But maybe it is because we do need to expand. Maybe it is because that part of our purpose right here now is to wake up. We talk about this thing of being woke, but what does that really mean? What does that really mean? Does it mean that we are just a little more woke than others? Does it mean that we do something that actively demonstrates that we see what's happened and what's been happening. We see the programming that goes on in our minds. We see what they do to us and what has been done and what will continue to be done. We see that what we do and how we contribute to the system, maybe in part that is the work to do, instead of just thinking to ourselves, this is the way it's always been. It causes you to go right back to sleep. And going right back to sleep is not what we need to do. Sometimes I get so excited about this kind of stuff. I get excited about it because there is the possibility that mm, we can see that perhaps to this end were we born. Let me see if I can put it another way. And I'm going to talk about it because Sometimes people will think automatically that what I am saying is counter to what we're supposed to do. There's an idea of don't rock the boat, right? Don't rock the boat. Don't say anything about that. Don't do anything about that. But can you imagine that if nobody ever rocked the boat, that we would never have progress? Um, it is it's this idea that the people who have made history have made it because they followed the rules. As a matter of fact, that's not true, is it? Right? It's the people who broke the rules, the rule breakers who have made history. And those are the names that stick out in our minds. Those are the people who were able to transcend this stuff, who were able to see the parameters and then push up against it because they said that this is too small. If we're walking around constantly trying to play small and play little, if we're being mousy about what it is that we do, are we really living? So, even Jesus in his day was a revolutionary. He pushed the envelope. He went against what was the norm. And remember, there were people who were speaking out against him. Are you really doing this on a Sunday? On the Sabbath? They would ask, are you really like talking to that woman? Are you really going to do or read from this or do that? I mean, there was this question all the time of what he did. He wasn't walking through this thing and everybody was saying, go, you go, dude. Just like Martin Luther King. Now they make movies and stuff that make Martin Luther King look like he was such a nice guy when everybody back then there were a handful of people who were supportive. But by and large, the world was not. And as we come up on Martin Luther King Day, we have got to really look at and think about the ways in which he has been, what do I want to say? That they've taken, it's kind of like my nails, right? Sometimes they get a little raggedy, right? And you take a emery board and you smooth them out so it becomes more acceptable to people. Well, I'm gonna tell you, in Martin Luther King's day, he was not acceptable to people, even to Black people. But let him make a movie about him. Let him make a movie about his life, and all of a sudden, maybe now he's a nice guy, right? Maybe they can take the edge off of a Malcolm X by reinterpreting his image through a movie or through something. And then you allow that to replace what it was that he did. You guys, we are called to be here now and to make a difference, to matter, to wake one another up and to shake us out of this slumber. Because otherwise, we really will be sheeple going through life without ever actually living life. Can you imagine walking and not ever like getting the benefit of the walk that you've taken? Because instead of you really trying to challenge yourself to move out of the pack or beyond the pack or pick up your pace or get something in there, you're just kind of going along with the masses. I'm sorry, but I just don't think that that is all of our callings. I think to some extent that there are those who are actually woke, whose responsibility it is to say, hey, there is another way that we can expand our vision on what is possible for our life. So I just sometimes when I think about what this may mean for you and I, right? When I think about what it means for our community, when I think about even the night that I had last night with that tossing and turning and not feeling as if I was really rested. When I think about these things, when I think on these things, they causes me to kind of, to ask the question, what am I supposed to learn here? What am I supposed to see here? What am I supposed to do? Who am I to talk to? What am I to share? Right? Because if I just think that my life is just about me alone without realizing that it is part of you know uh, mm, this brings up so much. I remember in college I took a black lit class, black literature class. And in this class, we were reading what they called mm, the Renaissance period, where all of these, you know, the writers, right, were publishing books, poetry, all types of stuff. When you think about the Renaissance period, it was right around the turn of the century, like the early, well, and so there was this kind of period, and it wasn't necessarily like at 1900. It was anything that happened between 1890 and 1930, something like that. Like there was a shift that was taking place. One of the things that Dr. Brown talked about was this idea of ages, right? So we have decades, we have centuries, we have these groupings of time. And when you think about an age, remember when they used to talk about this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And Dr. Brown has mentioned it because he talks about this idea of what Aquarius might represent. So if we are witnessing, maybe it won't, age is way beyond what our lifespan is in these bodies, but we are the people of this dawning. We are the people of this time frame, just like we are the people of this turn of the century. And so the question becomes, if I recognize and know that I am here on this planet at this time, might I have a purpose beyond my individual interests that serves the collective? Might I be aware that there is something, and any of us can really think into this, breathe into these spaces, and maybe bring out something that has laid dormant. People, we see it, but we don't. It's there, but it ain't. It's there, but we don't speak to it, right? So whether it is, and sometimes it's because we don't dream enough. And what I'm trying to do is just like last night as I tossed and turned in my bed, or even as I struggled around my own perceptions about things, I sometimes have to ask myself, how big is your dream? Right? How big, and it's not a dream, because most of the times when people think about dreams, they're thinking about having something, acquiring something. But wonder if it is not about what you have, not about what you can acquire, not about any tangible thing at all. Wonder if there is a part of you, like for me, there is a part of me that knows that healing is possible. right? That miracles are possible, and that when you don't see them occurring, there's something wrong. I don't I don't wake up in this idea that, oh, that's not going. I don't move in that space. And so when in the space that I move in, I think to myself, like, well, maybe my perception of this is not big enough, right? Because while I know that a miracle is possible, I also don't look for it. And my not looking for it means that I'm just going to consider it done, right? Just like that truck that time. Consider it done and move on without having to see the results. There are so many people who are constantly looking for proof and affirmation that things are done, that, that they even that's why people don't even pray like they used to, because they like, it ain't going not that ain't going right. Oh my gosh. And so what we have to do is even in this, to look at our perceptions and ask the question, do I have limitations there? Do I need to move further? How big is my dream? How big is the desire? And it's not about the stuff. It's about even just this, that we're connected. And if we just give in to what the cultural narrative that might say something, that you're over there and I'm over here, if we give into that, we don't see that we're connected. We won't see that we're connected. And so there's a part of us that really needs to begin to look and think about this in a very different way. To look and say to ourselves, is it possible? And only in asking the question and sitting with it, not just summarily dismissing it, not summarily dismissing it because this is what has always been done, but to really breathe into that space and say, maybe, just maybe, it's possible. Yeah, I am so over this people pleasing. Let me say that. I'm so over this idea of people pleasing, which is what we do. When we're people pleasing, you might think, what does that look like? Right? That looks like this idea of, I'm not going to talk about miracles, right? I'm not going to say that because, somebody might ask me to do one, or somebody might ask me to prove it, or somebody might call me on it. And so what we do is we shrink and we play small. We are one. And so when we consider that my accepting what's possible, my miracle mindedness affects your miracle mindedness. And if I don't do because I'm afraid or because I've got fear, then it kind of justifies you not doing because you've got fear. So, this idea of what happens and what affects one affects all is the truth. And so that's why this notion of being lifted up, right? If it, as I grow, I can't help but affect the other people around me in their growth. They say iron sharpens iron, right? This idea that you've got to have something that actually makes the initial uh, breakthrough, the initial expansion, that initial something that happens in order for everybody else to do. Remember that there was a time when they were talking about that 4 minute mile and that nobody had ever broken that record, right? Nobody ever ran that fast. That was like the pinnacle of it until somebody broke it. So there was this idea that fastest person on earth would have did a mile in 4 minutes. And then all of a sudden, somebody broke that 4 minute mile, broke it, right? Wow. Once they broke it, what was interesting was they broke that 4 minute mile, and then somebody broke theirs, and then somebody broke theirs, and they kept breaking records because now all of a sudden the parameters of that barrier that had been created there, the parameters of that was broken. And so now we can all run through it. But until somebody, it's interesting because one of the things that people do is everybody is, we're everybody that's scared, they're scared of the same things that the other people are scared of until you find somebody that says, I'm not scared. That's the story of David, right? When he was fighting Goliath, he goes down there and they were cowering. His brothers and the whole military, they were cowering at Goliath. That's what the story was about. Hey, he's taunting us, and he's going around and beating his chest and talking about, and little dude, the little runt that had been working out in the fields with no military training comes and says, well, wait a minute, what the heck? I done slain a lion before. I've done such and such. Give me a rock, dude. Give me some, they were trying to, no, you can't do it. You can't do it. Get back, get back. Right? We hear this all the time, don't we? I mean, we live out this story in our life all the time. People telling you not to go out there, not to try, not to do. Play it safe. Oh, you can't do a miracle. You can't talk to God. You can't, we got all of these things that, about what people can't do. I know, because I didn't have words spoken over me too, right? I call it spell casting, right? People have cast spells over me telling me about what I can't do, or or whatever it is. I know I'm still operating under some, and that's the work to do. That's the challenge. But you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. If you can't acknowledge that you have fear, that you're operating in fear, if you can't acknowledge that, you can't heal it. And so the work to do is let me see the parameters. Let me see the walls. Let me see what it is that's blocking my progression, my forward progression. And so once we begin to see that, and sometimes it takes somebody coming from the outside. Remember, it said that, people don't accept you in your own hometown. Oh, ain't that's just who is that? I remember when I told y'all this, when I first started doing this thing called radio, and somebody was at the station, and they came out and they were like, they said, you're the one that does that show? And I was like, yeah, as if it couldn't possibly be me. Because in their mind, they had a certain idea even about who I am, right? People have ideas about who you are and want to put you in a little box and make it seem like you can't do that. You can't be that. Who do you think you are? Well, the question I've learned to ask is, who do you think you are not to? We all have to step up just like David did and take our turn, because anything else is a part of the prison that we've set up to keep us small, to keep us from doing what it is that we've been called to do. And every time we cower, mm, y'all, sometimes we don't even know the price that we're paying by sitting this one out. I have a dear friend who, I've asked her a few times to do something, and she's always given me excuses. Why not? Right? Why not? Why not? No, I can't, no, this, no, that. And I just, okay, okay. The thing about it is that, I'll ask again and I'll ask again. But anytime our motivation for not doing something is fear, there is a price that is exacted. I love sometimes when I'm watching some kind of sci-fi show or something like that, they talk about the cost of magic or the cost of doing certain things. People, because there's not a direct correlation in there between what they do and then the cost that is to be paid, we don't perceive it to be a cost. But we heard karma. But where does karma show up, right? Or how does it show up? Because somehow in our minds, we think that there should be an exacting way that it shows up, and an exacting way that, we experience karma. Like if we steal, maybe that the karmic cost of it might be what, I don't know, that we get caught, or the karmic cost might be that somebody steals from us, or the karmic cost might be something else. But we, just because karma when it comes around doesn't look the same, we don't necessarily think or know or are aware that there is a karmic price that is being paid. Well, there's a karmic price to all the things that we do, good or bad. And so when we're playing small, can you imagine? Here's what is that guy, Famous Amos, or somebody said, right? Famous Amos said this thing about oh gosh, what did he say? Famous Amos said that God is always saying yes to you. God is always saying yes to you. Now, if you could just for a minute think about what that might look like. If God is always saying yes to you, if you play small and then God agrees with your playing small, then what happens is you may have only intended to play small for a minute or in a particular situation, but it said yes to you. And so now what you have is smallness. What you find yourself doing is you find yourself crouching. You find yourself marginalized, so to speak, because it's saying yes to your small idea. If you are saying you're afraid, or if you operate as if you are in fear, and it says yes, and it affirms your fear, then you'll get more to be fearful about. I mean, if you think about it, if we are living at the effect of our thinking, if God is saying to you, not unequivocally, knock and it shall be opened, seek and you shall find, right? When it's given this, And it's saying, I'm saying yes to you. Whatever you step towards me saying, I'm saying yes back at you. So if you're operating in fear, I'm going to affirm your fear. If you are operating in that you are limited, you have limitations, that you exist in a box, it says yes to that too. So maybe, just maybe, what we need to do is to step back and think, somebody said it was God's good pleasure to give me the kingdom, to give to me. Oh, could that be true? Could it be true? Love and blessings. Love and blessings to you. That dares to maybe, just maybe step out on that. Right? I don't know, but what I do know is that whatever it is that you're doing, right? There is this, yeah, there's a flow. There is this continuous moving flow. And so this continuous moving flow means that you can choose. You can change your mind. You can be brand new. And what does that mean for you? What will that mean for you? And here, let me just give you this possibility. If, say, for instance, you can change your mind and you had been operating from a small place, had been operating in a limited way, had been operating out of fear, that you've been gifted with the ability to change your mind. And while I know that sometimes it takes a little while before the karma of what we've done where, is burned off, you can make new steps. You can make new steps. Good morning, y'all. I'm just recording, so I need to kind of put some space in here for a second and not say names because I'm recording. So Mark, Hester, and Miss Taliaferro, how so good to see you here and that you made it on at this time. Walker, good morning to you. It's good to see you as well. So I don't want to let the morning go past without, well, I should say the afternoon to go past without. I've been sharing out of a book called A Return to Love. And A Return to Love is a book that I read back in the 90s by Marianne Williamson. Marianne Williamson is running for president, um, and this book was something that touched my life. And so every day when I do my broadcast, my daily broadcast over Facebook Live, I read something from out of her book, A Return to Love. And so today I just wanted to share with you this next paragraph is just coming in the order that I have been going. And it's been a blessing. This was one of the books that was just so pivotal in my shift in consciousness. And so I share it with any and everybody that listens. And since Marianne is running for president, I just figured, why not? Why not? One of the things that I know and have been aware of for some time is this amazing thing about speaking. Our mouth, our voice is creative. We call things into being. Y'all might think that even, like criticism might, you know, people are obsessed with even criticizing folks and talking about what's wrong. But even that, because we're saying a name, we are calling attention to something, which means that we are giving power to it. And so, rather than give power to something that I don't want to be associated with, I give power to something that I do. So, Marianne Williamson and her A Return to Love, I'm speaking power over this and her words and how it's impacted me and touched me. So in this particular section, she says, Jesus lived within this world of fear and perceived only love. He he lived in a fear-based society. Can you imagine a society that still stoned women, right? And we don't throw stones at people so much today as we do words, as we do thoughts, as we do accusations. You know, we try to get people to stay back in their box, like in the Barbie movie. You know, we throw different stuff and we think somehow it's better. But the effects are sometimes just as deadly. So she says that he lived in a world of fear, but wasn't paying attention to the fear. He perceived only love. Every action, every word, every thought was guided by the Holy Spirit that connects us one to the other rather than the ego that is about rugged individualism and that we're divided. He was thoroughly pure, a thoroughly purified being. And so when I talk about this imagining, when I talk about the expansion or what's possible for us, can you imagine just praying for purify my heart, purify my mind, help me to only see love, right? Let me not get caught up in fear and fear mongering and what somebody else might tell me is wrong with the world. Let me see this world as you see it. Purify my heart. That and then what does that look like, right? What would that look like? Because it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like judgment. It doesn't look like condemnation. It doesn't look like, oh, you got to think the way I think and see the way I see in order for me to accept that. That's not the way it looks to me. Love means love. And if it's not without condition, is it love? Or is it just me just trying to figure out how to get you in this box? To think about him is to think about. To think about him is to think about. And so to call forth perfect love inside of ourselves. So if, I mean, is that not a tall order, right? Is that not a tall order? That when we think about this idea of Jesus, this person of Jesus, we are not calling forth, you know, some soldier or assassin. We are calling forth love. Love, 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 love. That's the answer. It's the answer. Whatever the question is, the answer is love. So this is all about how do I expand? How do I get rid of the boundaries? How do I see? And sometimes it's just asking the questions, help me to see this differently. Speak it out, speak your word. There is a receptive God that is always listening and always saying yes. But if you are just, you know, trying to be small, if you're just trying to, you know, in limited, if you're, you know, uh, it, how do we grow? How do we grow? And is expansion the goal? So I ask you again, what's your dream? What are you dreaming? What are you thinking? What is it that you desire to do with your life? I know, I just keep, I just, sometimes I think about this higher, 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 higher. How do we get higher? How do we keep this expansion going? And what does that look like? What does expansion look like? One of the people that I just adore, I'm about to call her name, Jean Houston. In this forward she did in the Science of Mind book, she was speaking about God, and she said the infinite. So y'all know what infinite is. We learned that in first grade, right? The number line. To infinity means without limit. The infinite, knowing that it could not contract, coded the relative, meaning you and I, the finite, for expansion into itself. Y'all, that just ought to give you a pause. Because what that says is that you got to stop playing small. But if you don't know what small is, then I get it. Small is anytime you have these divisions, anytime you are trying to divide up and cut up. Playing small is based on fear. Playing small is small. You have been coded for expansion. You have been coded for expansion. You've been coded to work miracles. You've been coded to walk on water. You have been coded to transform right in your own experience. You keep looking for evidence. Oh my gosh, can't even try it because I need to see some evidence. Oof, baby, baby. So I just think that this is all good. Just to sit in the, it's kind of like, I see this whirlpool, I see the water sitting here, I put my foot in, it's a little hot, but darn it, I know that I got to do something that I may not have done before. Let me, and I may only be able to sit in it for a minute, but let me just wade in this water and see what it has for me. You beautiful, wonderful beings. If you only knew, if you only knew. I give thanks. I give thanks for you. I give thanks for you. We're coded for expansion. Coded for expansion. But here, let me say this too, because I always like to kind of couch this for people. If you deny anybody, you deny yourself. Because we are all connected. If you saying, yeah, not you, trying to push down, even if it's, a former president, or if you're trying to deny anybody, you are denied yourself. So you got to figure out, damn God, how do I expand into that kind of love? How do I expand into that kind of, that's what Jesus did, right? How do I expand into that love? Make that your job to do. Because being coded means that you're not carrying around any dark, dense energy. You're not carrying around hatred. You're not carrying around judgment. You're not carrying around, yeah, but not you attitudes. You're not carrying around all of that stuff. I think that's so good. I thank you, God. Thank you, God, for that. Thank you for that. Let me, whoo, I like it. I like it. And sometimes, y'all, this is not even stuff that like that I'm thinking up. It's just stuff that's flowing through me. And it's like, oh, I like it. I like it. It feels right. It feels right. And I know that it is for somebody, whoever it is for. Yeah, There it is. Whoop, there it is. So, wait a minute. Come on now. Here we go. So I am trying to get to the daily guide because I want to share with you the daily guide for today so that I can jump. I got work to do. Y'all know I got work to do. And I'm so grateful for all that is given for me to do. So let's see what Jafan Sealy wrote for today. My computer for some reason has shut down, so I had to reopen all of this. So let's see what he has for us today. Jafan Brown in the Science of Mind magazine. It's entitled for today, Belief in Self is greater than. Remember that sign that we had in school, the math sign, greater than, less than, or equal to, is greater than fear of the unknown. I tell you this stuff, how it coincides with what I have said, sometimes is amazing to me. So his first quote comes from Brene Brown, and it says, as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Mm, yes. From Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind book, it says the gift of God is the nature of God, the eternal givingness. God cannot help making the gift because God is the gift. Ooh, that's good. That's good. Remember, I was saying it's saying yes, it's saying yes, and you actually are setting the parameters of that yes. What? Okay, let me read what Jafan wrote for this. He says, take a moment and turn your attention within. Think about the things that excite you. Bring into your mind and heart the unique gifts that you came into this world possessing, the gifts you feel would make the greatest impact on the planet and bring fulfillment to your spirit. As you see those gifts, ideas, and dreams clearly, ask yourself, is there anything preventing me from sharing these even more abundantly with others? In some of my work, I work with people who are aspiring speakers, people who know they have a message inside, but something hinders them from sharing their messages with others. When working with these people, whether ministers, practitioners, community members, or business people, I find one thing comes up nearly without exception: fear. Fear of not being perfect, fear of not being liked, fear of embarrassing themselves. What's interesting about these fears is that they've been created within these people's mind. They are not real, but imaginary monsters that devour and consume gifts and dreams. The tragic part is we unconsciously feed this beast of fear every day, making it seem even more ferocious. So what is the opposite of fear? For me, it is the belief in myself. How can we use our mind and imagination to fuel our belief in ourselves? Simple. Recognize that every step, every breath, every action you commit is divinely guided by the essence of life. And you are bringing forth creation by way of this creative energy that enables you to be. Thus, your creation interacts with other creation, all of which flows from the Creator. We are giving ourselves to ourselves. The affirmation that he uses with this is I use my mind and thoughts to honor the Creator. My life unfolds in divine order. Wow. That was good. That was good. That was good. Yeah, thank you for being here today. What a blessing, what a blessing, what a blessing. Um, I am going to jump off of here because I got some editing to do so I can get this off my plate and move on to the next thing. Thank you. I bow deeply to you and your energy because it is through this, it's an exchange here. It's through that energy that you bring into this space that adds to what it is that I share. So have an amazing hump day. Today is Wednesday. Have an amazing day. And I'll see you in the morning. Blessings, y'all. All right. That was so good.